Mendeleev periodic table. Mendeleev, the Russian chemist, at the very similar time when the Luther was doing his or giving his observations and he was trying to classify the elements, he also came out with his own explanations and the classification of the elements. The advantage of the Mendeleev's classification is that they were more elaborate, and that is why the table which he actually prepared is more accepted. Now the Mendeleev periodic table is based on whatever the observations he has noticed, and he has actually then arranged the elements on the basis of the increasing order of their atomic masses in horizontally, and he placed the similar elements one below the other in the vertical columns. And this is how he arranged the elements in a periodic table, But the first thing you need to know about the Mendeleev is that the Mendeleev periodic table was based on the Mendeleev's periodic law. When Mendeleev did the elaborate studies of the present 63 elements, at that time of the Mendeleev, in 1869 there were about 63 elements were known by that time. So he almost did the study on almost all the elements which are present at that time, and then he came out with the explanation that the physical and the chemical properties of the elements are the functions of their atomic mass. And this is what is called Mendeleev's periodic table, that the properties of the elements are the functions of their atomic mass. And on the basis of the atomic mass, he arranged the elements in horizontally, and he placed the elements with the similar properties one below the other in vertical columns, and this is how he arranged the elements in the form of a table which is called Mendeleev's periodic table. Now Mendeleev periodic table was having the table was having 9 groups. In fact, groups were the vertical columns. So he was having 9 vertical columns which were called groups, and he was having 7 periods which are actually were the horizontal rows. So his table was having 9 vertical columns and 7 periods. Now his 9 groups were classified from 1 to 8th, and the last one was called 0, which was supposed to be including the noble gases which were not discovered by that time. Now what he did is, all his groups from 1 to 7th were divided into 2 subgroups, A and B. So each group was having 2 elements, 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B, and so on. So from group number 1 to group number 7 were divided into 2 subgroups. Each were having 2 elements in that. And the 8th one was having actually 3 elements together in this 8th group. So this was just an overall outline of the Mendeleev's periodic table. Now when he arranged the elements in the increasing order of their atomic masses horizontally and placed elements with the similar properties in one column, he was having certain gaps left out. Now those gaps were for the elements which were not discovered by that time. And what was the benefit that from those gaps we were able to know, because since that gap is belonging to a particular group, we were able to know that fine, okay, this element which is not known will be having so and so properties. It can be existing in the nature in the so and so form, or its ore will be so and so types. So this is how we were able to classify, or we were able to actually discover those elements after his periodic table. So that was the biggest advantage of his periodic table. The other thing is, we can list down his advantages. The advantages mainly, as I have told you, he left certain gaps, so we were able to discover new elements. I can give you an example. He left this space below aluminium, and that element he called as Ika aluminium, which were later discovered to be as gallium. In a very similar way, he placed a gap below silicon, and he called that element as Ika silicon. We later on discovered it and we called it germanium, Ge. In a very similar way, below boron a gap was left out. It was called Ika boron. The element later on discovered was scandium. So this is that was the biggest advantage, that he left the gaps for some of the elements which were not discovered by that time, so that but he explained that they will be having so and so properties. So with the help of that, we were able to discover them very soon after his periodic table. The other advantage of the Mendeleev's periodic table is that it was the first systematic study which was based on the elaborate study of the physical and the chemical properties of the elements. So it was the first systematic study which was including almost all the elements which were present by that time, and in fact he developed a scope for the discovery of the other elements also. The next and the most important advantage is that with the help of this Mendeleev's periodic table, we were able to find out the correct atomic masses of many elements. Because the Mendeleev's periodic table, remember, Mendeleev's periodic table was based on the physical and chemical properties of the elements, and mainly he was looking for the valency of the elements. What I can say is that what is basically the combining capacity of the elements is. So his basic idea of classifying of the elements was based on the valency. And that is why with the help of the valency from the equivalent mass, we were able to find out the exact atomic masses. So that was the other biggest advantage of the Mendeleev's periodic table. Now let us discuss the limitations or disadvantages of the Mendeleev's periodic table. Now, the disadvantages. The disadvantage is that it was based on atomic mass. He said the properties of the elements are based on basically other functions of the atomic mass, but he didn't give any explanation that how and why they are based on the atomic masses. So that was the biggest disadvantage, because we know atomic mass is not the fundamental property. And the first contradictory which came to his table is that he was not able to explain the positions of the isotopes. So isotopes were the second most problem for him, because like isotopes, I can tell you, like let's take an example of hydrogen. Hydrogen has three isotopes: normal, protium, deuterium and tritium. Can we place then the hydrogen in the three different groups according to the increasing order of the atomic masses? That was not done. So the issue of the isotopes of the elements was not actually taken up by Mendeleev, and that is why this point is basically one of the disadvantages. Second, the other next one. He was not able to actually give justice to the hydrogen's position. Mendeleev placed hydrogen in group 1A. He placed them in 1A above alkalis, considering its valency to be +1 and alkalis' valencies to be +1. That's fine. But we know it resembles with the halogens also. So the position which was given by Mendeleev to the hydrogen was again a disadvantage. Then he placed elements with higher atomic masses before the elements which are having actually lower atomic masses. So he on his own actually, he didn't follow his system of classifying or arranging the elements in the increasing order of their atomic masses. The biggest verdict he said, that the favorable thing which he said for this kind of a point is that he was saying that on his explanation was that he has placed or he has arranged the elements in the increasing order of on the basis of their similar physical and chemical properties, and that is why maybe the increasing atomic masses are not followed. But exactly if any particular property has been taken in the periodic table, like increasing atomic masses, it should be followed in all the elements. But he on his own, he placed the elements with the higher atomic masses before the elements with the lower atomic masses. Like the example is, we all know that he placed argon 40 before potassium 39. So argon 40 should come after potassium, but he placed before it. The reason is because its properties were similar to the other one. Similarly, he placed cobalt 58.9 before nickel, which is 58.7. So he on his own, he was not following his basic rule which he has set to arrange the elements in the increasing order of the atomic masses, and that is why this was done. The other disadvantage of the periodic table was no separate grouping for metals and non-metals. So no separate grouping was done for this. So these are the few disadvantages on the basis of which we basically didn't follow the Mendeleev periodic table in that larger extent. But yes, of course, since it was the first systematic study, we always give importance to the Mendeleev's periodic table, and he was the first one who actually has given us some sort of a shape to the periodic classification in the form of a table, which was actually changed to a long form of periodic table.